What's a dead giveaway that someone is not a good person? Nothing is ever their fault. My borderline narcissistic mom used to accuse me of this when I was a kid. She was consistently the one never taking any blame for anything, but when I'd call her out on it, this would be her retort, projecting her nothing's ever my fault behavior onto me. As a kid, you're simply not capable of figuring out how to counter that. This stuff messed with me so badly. When they cannot bring themselves to celebrate someone else's success. I had a friend like this. She was nice and seemed to like me. Took me quite some time to figure out the odd thing that was missing in our relationship. She couldn't be happy for me. Not even a little. Yeah, good for you, or something like that. Just radio silence. We split ways. I guess a subtle one is them treating you differently in public versus how they treat you privately. These can both go either way. I've been having an issue with a friend. Nice one-on-one, will help out when he can, but absolutely trashes me in front of others, especially women. They never apologize. Or their apology is them just listing out problems about other people. The classic, I'm sorry that you have a problem with my actions, instead of I'm sorry I did something wrong. It's always about them. They're always the hero or always the victim in their stories. Can't take criticism but probably dish it out to everyone else. They're never wrong. I have a friend like this. He's a very weird combo of pretty giving, thoughtful consciously, goes out of his way to help people, etc., but kind of subconsciously narcissistic. I think due to their upbringing, he's narcissistic but fights it. But yeah, 90% of what he talks about are minor interactions throughout the day that most people would just completely brush off that are apparently a huge deal to him and where the other party was super wrong. I'd say like 2/3 of them, he's kind of in the right, but they're extremely minor, and he's in the right based only on what he says. And like 1/3, he's clearly complaining about something completely normal that he looks like a peen for making a big deal about. He's fun to be around in groups because we'll talk about other things and have fun, but one-on-one it can get exhausting just hearing him complain about one thing after another. I've noticed this about myself in the past several months, and it truly takes a conscious effort to avoid it. Hate it. They remember you are their friend only when they need something from you. I cut a lot of people off like that when I realized they only hit me up when they needed me. Hey bro, you still have your truck? Need some help moving something this weekend. Nah, you haven't talked to me in 5 months. Go get a U-Haul. More context for those asking. Yes, attempts were made on my side many times to hang out prior to this. It was more of a buildup of things over time that led to me just cutting them off. I had a friend like that in high school. Would only ever hit me up when he needed a ride. I said no like 2 times and stopped reaching out to them ever, and the problem solved itself. I didn't need to cut them off. They stopped being a friend when I stopped being a pushover. If they brag about how they pulled a fast one on the other people, as if to say how smart or slick they are and everyone else is stupid. A former friend was a habitual liar. I thought he had a mental disorder or something because of it, or he thought he needed to impress me with his lies so that we could be friends. Then one day he told me he's such a good liar and he's gotten so many things in life because he lies. He instantly got cut off. No contact for a year until I saw him recently at a mutual party, and still barely gave him the time of day. He was always using me. Good riddance. Treating people well only if they can benefit from them in some way. If they treat you well but treat random people like crap, they aren't good people. And they'll treat you like crap too if you ever stop being of use to them. Some crappy people will treat you nice without expecting anything from you just because you are one of them. They won't treat people whom they don't consider of them nice, though. I've experienced this a lot with certain men. There is a certain type of man who does not see you as a person to interact with if you're not a dude, and you're not a woman he wants to hit on. If you fall outside of that, you might as well be wallpaper. Sometimes I will suddenly be talked to if I start dating a friend of a guy like this because now I'm his buddy's property. So that brings me to life. It's so interesting to watch. I'm bisexual, and I've also switched into the worth talking to category when one of these men discovers that I like women. Not because they think they can score a threesome or anything, but almost as if they moved me to the guy category. They constantly say or do things where their only justification for doing so is, "It was just a joke," when called out on it. Ah yes, the Schrodinger's douchebag. They decide if the offensive or rude thing they say is a joke based on the audience's response. When telling you about issues in their life and everything is everyone else's fault / no accountability. If all of their exes are crazy, they're crazy. My favorite version of that, if you smell crap anywhere you go, check under your own shoe. A lot of times they'll straight up tell you. Anybody who gleefully tells you, "I'm such an asshole," or "I'm such a bish," is usually not joking. even if they say it while laughing. They call this prophecy. How someone treats another person based on their job title. Anyone who treats a server, maid, garbage person, etc. like crap is just telling the world how much of a piece they are. As a truck driver, I get looked down upon by some. Most of the time it doesn't bother me because of how much I get paid. I don't have a college degree and I make a decent chunk of change. I feel like I made a good decision, and nobody's going to take that from me. What does bother me is when I'm accused of being stupid. I get the whole thought process of why we're looked down upon. I don't, however, get why some think we're all stupid. The trucking industry has just as many idiots as any other industry, but we aren't defined by them. The reason they're so obvious as opposed to other industries is that they're driving huge trucks. My boyfriend is a truck driver. I'm an accountant. He constantly refers to himself as just a dumb truck driver, and it infuriates me when he does that. Just because I chose a profession that required a college degree does not mean I am smarter than him. Sure, I may be better with financial statements and taxes than he is, but I could never do what he does. Not to mention, he's an avid hunter and outdoorsman. Should the zombie apocalypse ever happen, I know I'll survive because I have him. I wouldn't know how to hunt lattes. Everyone is smart and skilled in their own way, and no one's job makes them more or less important than anyone else. Even without the boyfriend in my life, I'm grateful for every last one of you drivers. You sacrifice your time away from your home and loved ones to make sure this country stays stocked and running. Watch out for the assholes on the road and safe travels. Always talking crap about other people when they aren't around. I work with a guy who's closing in on 70 years old. Easily 90% of the conversation I've had with him over the years is crapping on really over the top to everyone that isn't me, and he's quite friendly to me, especially if he needs something. I can't remember if I overheard him or if someone told me, but I know for sure he craps on me the same way when I'm not there. So now, every once in a while, I'll just sharply divert whatever we're talking about and flatly ask him how many times he called me dumb before I was in range of hearing. Turns into a wilted petunia. I don't understand how people like this make it so far in life. That's always the case. No matter how nice they seem to you, that's never the case. They're talking crap about you just like they do everyone else. My boss is like that. She's actually an alright person, but without fail, every time she's talking to me or anyone else, she tries to crap on someone who isn't around. And it's always petty crap too. When you express a boundary, they try to guilt trip you, pressure you, or threaten you to try and force you to do things that you don't want to do, or just flat out ignore. Have a roommate who's been doing that on top of other things. She'll be evicted soon though. A complete lack of compassion unless it's about themselves. Putting people down for fun. Never accepting responsibility for crappy behavior. Everything is always about them. Everything. Even if you're going through something difficult, suddenly they've been through the same thing but worse. Even when they're being generous, it's for public display and not from a real place. Sulking and throwing fits to get their way. Yes, I'm thinking of a specific person. As someone worried, I talk about myself too much. When it's always about me, do you mean ignoring other people's stories or heart-to-hearts? Whenever I chat and it gets deep, if I can relate, I often try to say a similar experience if applicable to show I have an idea of how they're feeling. But it's coming from the intent to show I sympathize with friends. Is that what people mean when they say all about themselves as a bad trait? It's different. You seem to be operating from a place of empathy, which is a great thing. Relating to people and putting yourself in their place is a good and helpful thing as long as there's room given for them to express themselves. I'm talking about people who monopolize and dominate those kinds of conversations to minimize the experience of others to put themselves in the spotlight, regardless of the context. Treats animals poorly. I dated a girl for about a year. We were both in college and lived with our respective parents. We didn't go to each other's homes often. One day I was at her house and she mentioned something about her dog. Her what? How did we date for a year and I never knew she had a dog? She asked if I wanted to meet him and I immediately said yes because, hey, a dog. It turned out her family had a sweet full-grown golden retriever in a maybe 10 by 10-ish cage in the backyard. I asked if she took him out to play with him and she said he stayed in there all the time because he jumps all over us when he's out. There's no way I could abide being a part of that family. Throwing trash out of a car window / littering. This happened to me at a red light yesterday. Heard something clunk against my car. Fast food box stuffed with trash thrown out of the passenger side by the driver. Just chucked it against my car while stopped. I was furious. Yelled and honked. She ignored me while grooving to the music in her headphones. I hate people sometimes. Headphones while driving makes the list too. Treating service workers poorly. Thanks for all the karma and rewards, everyone. This question is posted a lot, but I'm glad everyone here cares about service workers. I worked fast food for 3 years and it was horrendous. Everyone here agreeing is what makes the world a more humane place. Tip your servers and thank your cashiers. Someone who yells at you for crying, or mildly tell you to stop complaining when you vent to them but expect you to listen to their venting when they do. Never taking accountability for anything. This is actually a pretty good indicator of a person with some kind of personality disorder like narcissism. The clue you are looking for is that nothing is ever their fault. Unless it's really good, then of course it was all them. They mistreat their animals or pets. This is a huge one for me. A lot of comments in this thread are subjective and circumstantial, but hurting innocent animals, and in my opinion also elderly people, is extremely crooked and awful. People who are always trying to manipulate a situation from the smallest thing to the bigger issues. It is exhausting to be around them. They steal from you. They cannot take criticism and think that they can do no wrong. If someone thinks that the whole world is against them without ever considering their own actions, then there is a problem. To put what I mean into perspective, here is an example of a friend that my husband used to have. I will call this friend Brad. My husband and 2 of his friends went out to dinner. Brad said he didn't have any money, so my husband and the other guy covered him. Brad ate 3/4 of the food, then went home and bought a $300 anime statue on Amazon. Another example, Brad sits on his chair, plays video games all day and doesn't watch his kids. He will make sure his family has money to go to Disney World, but won't make sure that they have money to get their hot water heater installed or to send his oldest kiddo to school. If anyone tries to suggest that he reorganize his budget, that person is deemed a peen and he picks a fight. This is just to put into perspective the kind of person I'm talking about. If someone is capable of being gaslighted or thinks that they're wrong about everything, they're not the kind of person I'm talking about. They hold sham elections to annex parts of countries that don't belong to them. If they are willing to gaslight you, I have memory problems due to MS, and when someone is willing to bend your reality, there is a huge moral issue happening. How they talk about their significant other / spouse / partner or whatever. If you talk crap about the person you supposedly love, you are a giant mountain of garbage. This is also a ridiculously difficult cycle to break out of. If you have problems with your significant other, and you bitch to your family about them, your family will never treat them kindly, even on the good days. Some of the best advice I've gotten through years of therapy. If you speak poorly about someone to others instead of discussing your feelings with that person directly, the results will always be negative. They lose because you're robbing them of the opportunity to be better. You lose because you break their trust. You shape an outsider's perspective negatively when you share your issues with them. They lose objectivity, and often those are the people you turn to for advice, and now guide you from that place of bias you created. If you have a problem with someone, please go directly to them. If things don't go well, you save yourself some time and build trust in yourself. If it's not worth it to bother with this person, keep your mouth shut and move on. You are the expert of you. Only you hold all the information and context on your issue with someone. Only you are in that relationship with them, no one else. How could anyone else know better than you what to do? Yes, there are circumstances that warrant a warning to others or require professional help, but I'm not discussing the outliers. So this should be obvious, but it's not. As a guy, don't trust another guy if he cheats on his spouse. If he'll betray the closest person to him, he doesn't care about his friends either. Trust me. They don't put the shopping cart back in the corral once they're done with it. Actions and words not matching. I'd add the caveat of consistently not matching. Sometimes people have valid reasons, and sometimes crap happens. But if this happens consistently, I start to wonder. When a person needs to explain to you in a conversation that they're actually a good person. I've had this conversation with my daughter. If you have to justify someone's bad behavior and try to explain that they're really a good person, they're really not. They talk horribly about others. Everyone gossips, but when you're talking about someone's weight, depression, family issues, etc. in a nasty way, you're not a good person. They are mean to animals or hate animals for no reason. I certainly understand allergies, and that is a very good reason not to be around animals. I'm talking about hating animals, all animals for no reason. They make fun of someone with a disability. They treat people like waitstaff, cashiers, and other service workers like crap. Not refilling the Brita after taking the last bit of water, or leaving a tiny bit and saying, "I didn't finish it," even though it's less than half a cup. There's this one saying, you can tell a person's character by how they treat those who can't do anything for them. They are condescending and make put-downs and don't have good manners. When they are always the victim, I put my guard up because I've known too many who rewrite their reality and deny their accountability. They're always asking for favors and never returning them. There are a lot of hints. A very subtle one is them walking on wet floors in front of the cleaning person without apologizing. It's common human decency to do that weird awkward dance while looking pained and mouthing, "I'm sorry." If they veil insulting, derogatory, or generally aggressive comments as humor. If everything done, said, or worn revolves around political affiliation in some way, seriously, those people are freaking miserable. My mother disowned me because I continued spending time with her siblings after she started a fight. I tried to repair things, but she wouldn't budge. It was us or them. So I haven't seen or spoken to my mother, father, sister, or niece in almost 5 years. Occasionally, I'll get wasted text messages from my mother asking to see my children, but she wants me to drop them off at the end of her driveway and says she doesn't want to see me. Frick that. It's a strange feeling that you have lost your mother and father before they're dead. They even sold their house and moved without telling me. That was about 5 years ago. I stopped crying about not having parents in my life a couple of years ago. Fortunately, I have 2 great children and an amazing wife. I'm just going to keep it moving. They beat up their spouse. A guy in a hockey mask asking for directions to the nearest lake. It's always me, me, me. People who brag about how much they care about other people. I think overall the biggest tell for me is people who make lots of small lies or false statements. They can be bragging or just obscuring the truth enough to make something sound better, or any number of things. And these aren't white lies. They are just reality-denying things. Comments or statements that, if you catch them, are usually too small to be worth confronting, but there's a reason they will lie like that. They will escalate if you let them. Constantly interrupting. Worse, not listening. The way they talk to lower earners in society, such as the cleaner at work. I'll go with pretty much all that people have said here with one other thing. They won't let you finish a sentence. They talk over you. If you get a word in edgewise to ask why they keep talking over you, you were taking too long to answer, or they already knew what you were going to say. No, what they have to say matters more. You are there to listen and to build their ego, and your opinion doesn't actually matter. I'm getting a lot of replies from people saying they do this and can't help it. There's a big difference between someone talking over you because they are excited and want to share their experience or thoughts about a similar situation, and someone who only wants to talk about themselves and asks, "How was your day?" and keeps talking about theirs as though your answer doesn't matter. Your naturally chatty personalities are endearing and funny and make me want to hug you, with my hand over your mouth so that you stop talking. You can be frustrating and exhausting, but trust me, you do instinctively know when to shut up when it really is needed. Sometimes slower personalities need people like you to give us a bit of an energy boost. My fast-talking friends and I seem to balance each other out. I gotta say that this behavior isn't necessarily an ego thing, but could be an ADHD or other neurodivergent mental issue. If cats or dogs instantly hate them, I at least notice that and see what's up. 80% of the time, they have a point. My dog absolutely loves everyone she comes in contact with. She's full of love, but she freaking hated my ex. The only person she hated. Should have taken that as a sign because my ex was a massive idiot. They lie. Anyone who treats the disabled poorly. They start treating me badly or like a child when they find out I'm autistic. People who can't laugh at themselves or take themselves too seriously. This is typical with narcissists. Being incapable of recognizing your own faults is healthy, and acknowledging/accepting them means that you're likely to give others the same grace. This was a red flag I missed for a woman who turned out to be a raging narcissist. I had a friend who was asking everyone for money for a deposit to buy a car. How can someone like that think they can afford a car? And whenever I asked her to pay back for concert tickets, she'd just say she didn't have the money even after promising to give it back. She just acted like it was nothing. I don't know what to tell her anymore. I just don't lend her money for anything. The last time I met with her, she expected me to pay when we'd eat somewhere. And at that time, I didn't even have a job. I think someone like this is not a good person. They constantly state that they're a good person and constantly brag about it. I get maybe talking about something kind you did for someone, but if you're constantly trying to prove to everyone that you're a good person, you're probably not. Abusive to service workers. Hate people due to political opinion differences. Not taking accountability if they've done something wrong and blaming it on others. The "I'm never wrong" or "I know how to do this better or faster than that person who's been employed with the company for 20 years" mentality. Believing that their personal convenience comes above the inconvenience of others. These are the red or yellow flags for me. What they find funny. If the humor is based only on cruelty and is sadistic in nature, if they are both extremely judgmental and thin-skinned, they treat people like objects. They dismiss bad behavior by victim blaming. If they refuse to acknowledge that other perspectives are valid, they undercut people to make themselves look better. If they feel they are exempt from the rules everyone else has to follow. They don't wave back to a baby. Seriously saw a baby waving and saying hi to someone and they just stared and then looked away. They obviously have no soul. People who consistently behave differently towards others, based on their status. Reckless driving shows they care more about their petty needs than other safety. I can spot crap people, usually like many examples given. I met many in my life, but a truly bad, malignant person only once, and it took getting PTSD and therapy to survive them. I wish truly bad people with no empathy, sympathy, or real emotions had an MO, but they are very good at using people. I feel sorry for anyone who loves these people. They say, "Go back to your country." Breaking the rules/laws that no one will ever know they are breaking, like hunting and fishing regulations. They don't concede defeat after a full and fair election and encourage violence to attempt to subvert democracy. Not being happy for others. They tell you that they are a good person. Pro-forced birth ideology is a big one. They use the word woke as a derogatory term. What word would you suggest we use to differentiate genuine left-wing values from the trendy toxic puritanism which wears them like a skin suit? They are not treating everyone equally, although it's hard to treat everyone every time equally. I have nothing against you, but they violate other people's boundaries and refuse to respect them, even when repeatedly asked to. They even laugh at the idea, like other people's boundaries are absurd. Yet of course they have their own, and they expect them to be respected. Trying to get a retail worker or server fired for the giggles. I knew someone like this. She'd start insulting a worker, and when the worker pushed back verbally, the screams would wake the dead. I asked why. Her reply, "No reason, I was bored." Honestly, I saw it as someone who was powerless and knew it, acting out in order to feel powerful for 1 or 2 minutes. I hope someday she has to work a job like this and runs into her exact double. They call themselves pro-life or empath. Every single person I've met that calls themselves an empath is insane. I feel like it's got to be a part of a narcissistic personality disorder. They seem to think they feel more and differently than others, and try to make the other person's feelings all about themselves. People who are naturally empathetic don't typically feel the need to announce it, in my experience. Not admitting when they're wrong. Coal rolling. When their dog doesn't even get excited to see them when they come home. Everyone hates me. There's almost always a reason why, and if you stay with them for too long, you'll find out quickly. There are obviously people with low self-esteem, but if they keep pushing it on you, it's a sign that you need to show them the door. If they believe that someone that does manual labor or simple work deserves to be paid less than a livable wage. They're not kind to their mom. When they tell you that they are a bad person, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Racism, adultery, justifying either. Unable to stop talking about themselves or discussing their own life achievements with little to no regard for other people's desires. At first, they insult others, possibly you. Then they backtrack, claiming that they were just kidding. People who think that their being offended translates to something being wrong. They have no humility, will never admit that they are wrong. I have so much respect for people that say, "You're right, my bad," and people I can say this to in the spirit of a healthy debate or conversation. Meanwhile, people who fight you on it and battle your opinion even when they've realized they're wrong just because they don't want to lose is such an awful trait, typically belonging to the worst people I know. If all of their jokes/humor involves insulting someone, not talking about just occasional jokes about someone, but if everything they find funny or joke about is mean humor, it's a big red flag. A lack of empathy for others. If you see them being mean or rude to other people for a laugh and include you in on the joke, just remember it's only a matter of time until you become the butt of that joke. Can't take responsibility for their own actions. Not respecting personal space, even when you've asked them to, and talking over you. So annoying. Their morals seem to change when they're angry. People who don't stick to their morals when they're mad aren't good people. People can hurt animals without remorse. Nothing shows evil like that. You can feel it down to your bones when you see someone harm an animal and not care. It's repulsive, and truly, it is the most obvious sign of a true monster. Constantly reminding you about the good things they've done for you, and how they ostensibly took your needs and wants into account. Spoiler warning, people who actually care about you won't hold that as ransom to make you behave like they want you to behave. When someone judges others solely based on their political beliefs. They brag about being a good person. They launch an unprovoked invasion of a neighboring country. Thanks for watching until the end. Do you have an example you'd like to give? Or maybe did you realize something about yourself you didn't know? Tell us about it in the comments below. Then be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you know when our next video is available. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.